Hello, I'm Thomas. I'll be presenting on behalf of my colleagues Simon, Jen, and Matt from the Computational Foundry at Swansea University, and my colleague Dani from Studio Hazy in Mumbai. To give you an overview of the presentation, I'll be covering three main topics. First, I'll introduce the TalkBack system on the left, a prototype smart speaker that combines machine and human speech assistants in public settings. The system is in its third major iteration, so I'll go over the user context and history of the project. Next, I'll talk about results from a longitudinal deployment of the system. And finally, I'll conclude by contextualizing our results within wider discourses and draw out implications for both HCI and AI researchers. So let's get started. We conducted our research in Dharavi, a slum located in the heart of Mumbai in India. Dharavi is one of Asia's largest slums, with about 700,000 residents, and is one of the most densely populated areas in the world. Dharavi has a large informal economy, and of especial relevance to our work, residents communicate in many different languages. They also have different levels of textual and media literacy. This is why users from places like Dharavi are referred to as emergent users. That is, people who are just getting their hands on advanced digital technologies, such as the mobile phone, but aren't necessarily able to access all functions. In Dharavi, we conducted workshops to imagine and experiment with designs for future technologies. One particular challenge some emergent users face is effectively inputting text in their primary language. In Dharavi, this might be Marathi, Hindi, or Urdu. During workshop activities, community members identified speech interaction as a way to break down these barriers. We rapidly prototyped one idea from the workshop for a public smart speaker that could understand local languages. And we subsequently tested the prototype in Dharavi using a Wizard of Oz approach. That is, the prototype itself only contained a speaker connected to a mobile phone. A person was on the other end of the phone line and responded to questions as they arrived. Given the success of exploratory work, we built two high-fidelity prototypes, which together we call StreetWise. The first StreetWise system was essentially a Hindi language version of Google Assistant. To use it, people press the button and ask a question. The response from Google Assistant is then played through the speaker. Thus, the system was machine-powered and gave instant responses. In contrast, the second system was human-powered and gave delayed responses. The initial interaction is the same. You press a button and ask a question. Only this time, the response isn't immediate. Instead, the StreetWise system prompts users to remember a 4-digit number, such as 1234, and return after about 10 minutes. During those 10 minutes, the question is forwarded to a crowd of people who subsequently record an answer. Upon returning, users enter their code using the keypad, and the system plays the recorded answer. We deployed 10 of each system, so 20 total, in Dharavi for 40 days, resulting in over 12,000 queries. Please check out the paper published last year at CHI 2019 if you're interested in the types of questions that people asked. For the purposes of this talk, I'll focus on high-level results, namely, people generally appreciated the instant response of the machine-powered system, but were often disappointed with the quality of the answers they received. And almost inversely, people generally appreciated the quality of human answers, but were often disappointed with the delay. So let's return to the current work. Motivated by these high-level findings, we combined both the machine-powered and human-powered systems into the current TalkBack prototype. The goal was to combine the advantages of each system. We did this by adapting the StreetWise open source toolkit. And then we deployed the devices. We deployed the TalkBack devices for 25 days and across 10 shops in Dharavi. Most of the shopkeepers had participated in the previous study, so we're familiar with either the machine-powered or human-powered systems. This is what a typical deployment context looks like. On the left, the device is deployed next to a grocery store across from a popular fish market in a narrow alleyway. And on the right is another location, a picture framing shop. We asked shopkeepers to put out the devices each morning and pack them up in the early evening. Across the 10 devices and over 25 days, people asked just over 4,000 questions. And just like with the machine-powered devices before, users received an instant response from the Hindi version of Google Assistant. We then play an audio prompt that asks users to rate if they were satisfied with the response they received, using the red X or green check mark on the keypad. 26% of the time, users did not rate the response. Fair enough. In this case, the TalkBack system resets after a short timeout and is ready to answer another question. A further 34% of the time, users rated the response that they received positively. Great. And again, the system resets and waits for another question. And finally, in 40% of the cases, users rated the response negatively. Only this time, the TalkBack device doesn't reset itself, but prompts the user if they would like a real person to answer their question. In 29% of those cases, users did not respond to the prompt, which again would cause the system to reset to its initial state. However, in the majority of cases, 71% to be precise, users opted to forward their question to a human for answering. And just like in our previous work, the user would be given a 4-digit code, which they need to enter into the system after about 10 minutes to allow time for their question to be answered by a pool of 10 people. We recruited those people to listen to and answer questions on a companion mobile app. A feature of our research is that we only analyzed those 71% of questions where A, users negatively rated the machine response they received, the top blue segment in the diagram, and B, where users subsequently indicated that they would like to forward the question to a human, the bottom green segment in the diagram, or 1,132 questions in total. Who is playing today? This is an example of a typical indexical question that exposes gaps in current conversational agent abilities. A question where Google Assistant responds, "I can't help you with that." It is also the type of question where humans can fill in the gap through shared experience and background knowledge. In this case, the answerer could tell that the Indian Premier League cricket match was the likely answer. Because our deployment took place over the 2019 elections, there were also lots of political questions. What is the exit poll? When is the election? Who runs Ward 184? Or what documents are required for a PAN card, a type of tax identification number? Again, the crowd of human answerers were able to step in and provide appropriate answers where Google Assistant failed to do so. Some shopkeepers reported occasionally helping first-time users, for instance, by demonstrating the device or by indicating how users can rephrase their questions so they were more likely to be understood and answered by Google Assistant. Answerers similarly noted that it could be difficult, especially for a computer, to understand the dialect of Dharavi and the way residents phrased questions. They also reported that it could be tiring to answer repetitive questions and even suggested ways of automating responses. Another theme that emerged during interviews was that answerers were motivated by directly helping users. The paper has a lot more details on user questions and system responses along with comparisons to previous studies. In the paper, we also report on a subsequent deployment where we follow answerers' suggestion to automate responses to repetitive questions. We did this by pooling already answered questions into a corpus. Next, we extended the TalkBack device to use incoming question transcripts to find and retrieve answers from the corpus. but we also still give users the option of forwarding their questions to a human. Please check out the paper for more details. But for this presentation, I want to zoom out again to contextualize and focus on the wider implications of our main findings. To restate them, users requested a human response 71% of the time. This contrasts with broader concerns over how Amazon, Google, and Apple currently use subcontracted services to listen to smart speaker questions. Reactions to this type of investigative reporting suggests many customers are unaware that humans may be listening in. They also show how recorded audio clips that end up being flagged for review often are misactivations. In these cases, it is more likely that sensitive or otherwise identifying information is overheard by smart speakers. And it's not just investigative reporting. Researchers have also shown how users are effectively trading privacy for convenience, and in other cases speak of user resignation. Our work is also in dialogue with critical scholarship that scrutinizes subcontracted AI supply chains, such as Gray and Suri's book titled Ghost Work. The book argues that it takes human intelligence to push the boundaries of what machines can learn. Think about the "who is playing today" question, where the human answerer was able to draw on their broad knowledge of the world. It is thanks to millions of similar acts of transcribing or data labeling by subcontracted workers that machines are able to learn. Relegating people doing this type of work to the shadows, however, reinforces the myth that machines alone are smarter than they actually are. This exacerbates the harsh realities of those working in the shadows of AI, but who also form the critical infrastructure on which AI services depend. But it doesn't have to be that way, as the Ghost Work book argues and our research demonstrates. We would all be better served, users and ghost workers, if we knew how AI supply chains actually functioned. In a sense, TalkBack is a microcosm of exactly those AI supply chains. If you read this interaction flow diagram of TalkBack from left to right, you're essentially following the happy path of AI, when everything is running smoothly and users ask questions like, "What is the weather?" or "Who is the Prime Minister?" to which AI systems know how to respond. But what about when users ask questions such as "Who is playing today?" and AI systems fall short? Well, then it's up to humans to pick up the work. In the diagram, this is the more complex top-to-bottom flow. What differentiates TalkBack from conventional smart speakers is that this handover is done transparently, at the point of interaction, with user awareness and control. Let's think about that word, transparency, for a minute and look up its definitions. A window, for example, is transparent because you can see the objects behind it. But this is only the colloquial meaning of the word. But in computer science, terms like information, communication, or in our case, transparent, lose their colloquial sensibilities. Here, the dictionary lists a domain-specific definition, the opposite of its everyday meaning, when something functions without the user being aware of its presence. Typically, it is used when speaking about a lower level of abstraction, something the user doesn't need to concern themselves with. But what does, or rather should, transparency mean for users of AI-infused systems, such as speech assistant services? While our work clearly resonates more with the colloquial rather than the technical meaning of transparency, we also show that AI needs humans and benefits from their creativity, general knowledge, and ability to understand. The TalkBack system further demonstrates that it is possible, practical, and beneficial to combine machine and human intelligence in such a way that it is clear to users when and how human help is enlisted. While we focus on speech assistants in this work, our clear recommendation is to consider how the design ethic we demonstrate might improve other AI-infused products that rely on, but currently render invisible, the humans that are brought into the loop. With that being said, we would like to thank our funders and especially all the people who contributed to this work. Thank you.